The stranger at my door said he knew my daughter, and that should have been impossible because my daughter has been dead for 7 years. So at first, I thought he had the wrong house, wrong person, wrong story, until he said her name the way only someone who'd heard it from her could say it. Soft, but certain. And then he handed me a thin yellow envelope like it didn't belong to him anymore, like it was something he'd been carrying too long and needed to get rid of. And I remember forcing a polite smile while my chest started tightening because something about him felt rehearsed, like he'd practiced this moment. And when I finally opened the envelope and saw what was inside, my knees actually weakened. Because right then, I understood one thing with terrifying clarity. Someone had been lying to me about my daughter for years, and whatever truth was coming, it wasn't going to bring her back. It was going to destroy everything I thought I knew about her. I stood there holding that envelope long after the stranger walked away, just staring at it like it might explain itself if I waited long enough. Because grief does something strange to your instincts. It teaches you to avoid anything that feels like hope. And that envelope felt exactly like that. Dangerous hope, the kind that can reopen wounds you barely survived closing. But my hands were already moving before my mind caught up, sliding a finger under the flap, pulling out a single photograph. And the second I saw her face, my breath hitched, because it wasn't some random picture. It was my daughter, smiling the way she used to when she forgot the world was watching, sunlight in her hair, head tilted slightly, alive in a way photos aren't supposed to feel. And for a moment, I just stared like I was afraid she might disappear if I blinked, until I noticed the hand resting on her shoulder, a man's hand, unfamiliar, confident, like it belonged there. And something inside me tightened because I knew every friend she had, every coworker, every boyfriend she'd ever mentioned, and this hand didn't belong to any of them. So I turned the photo over expecting a date or location, something normal, something harmless, but instead there was a single sentence written in clean dark ink. "She never told you, did she?" And I swear my stomach dropped because that wasn't a note, that was a message directed at me, which meant whoever sent this knew exactly who I was and exactly what I didn't know. And suddenly, memories I'd trusted for years didn't feel as solid anymore. Little moments replaying differently in my head. Late calls she brushed off, trips she kept vague, that one dinner where she almost said something important and then changed her mind and smiled instead. And I felt this slow, uneasy realization creeping in that maybe I hadn't known my daughter as completely as I believed, that maybe there had been a part of her life running quietly beside mine, where things happened she never shared. And I didn't know which scared me more, the idea that she'd kept secrets from me, or the idea that someone else out there knew them. I didn't sleep that night, not even close, because once your mind latches onto a question like that, it doesn't let go. It circles it, worries it, keeps nudging it like a bruise just to see if it still hurts. And by morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table with that photograph under the overhead light, like it was evidence instead of memory, studying every inch of it the way you do when you're sure something important is hiding in plain sight. And at first, all I saw was her, my girl, frozen mid-laugh, eyes half squinted from the sun, the tiny scar near her eyebrow she got falling off her bike when she was 9, details I'd memorized years ago. But then my focus kept drifting back to that hand on her shoulder, the way the fingers curved slightly, like they were used to resting there, comfortable, familiar. And I realized it wasn't just a hand I was looking at, it was a clue. And that's when my chest tightened because I noticed the ring. Thick band, dark square stone, nothing flashy but distinctive enough that it scratched at my memory, like a half-forgotten song. And I sat there staring at it until the recognition hit so suddenly I actually whispered no out loud, because I had seen that ring before, not in a photo, in real life, years ago at a restaurant table when my daughter introduced me to a man she said was just someone from work who happened to be in town, someone unimportant, someone I'd forget by morning. And I had forgotten him, until now, until that same ring was staring back at me from a picture she never told me existed. and a cold feeling started spreading through me as I realized this photo wasn't recent. The edges were worn, slightly faded, which meant this wasn't some new secret being revealed. It was an old one finally surfacing, something that had been true while she was still alive, while she was still calling me every Sunday, still laughing at my bad jokes, still saying she was fine. And suddenly, my memories didn't feel reliable anymore. They felt edited, like I'd been watching the safe version of her life while something else had been happening just out of frame. So I grabbed my phone and searched his name, the one she'd mentioned that night, telling myself I was overreacting, that I'd find a normal profile, a boring job, a wife, kids, proof this was all coincidence. But when his photo appeared on the screen, my stomach dropped, because it was him. Older, maybe, more tired around the eyes, but unmistakable. Same face, same ring, and beneath his name wasn't a company bio or social page. It was a news headline, bold, black letters across the top of the article. And the second I read it, the room felt too quiet, like even the air was listening. Financial fraud investigation expands. Authorities expect more victims. And I just sat there staring at the screen as a slow realization took shape, heavy and undeniable, because that message written on the back of the photograph suddenly didn't feel cryptic anymore. It felt deliberate, like someone hadn't just wanted me to see it, they'd wanted me to understand it. I kept staring at that headline like the words might rearrange themselves into something harmless if I didn't look away, but they didn't. They just sat there heavy and real, while a slow realization settled into my chest that this wasn't coincidence, and it definitely wasn't random, because people don't send strangers photographs with hidden messages unless they want something uncovered, which meant whoever mailed that envelope knew exactly what they were doing and exactly what it would do to me. And that thought alone made my hands start to shake, because it meant I wasn't just remembering my daughter anymore. I was stepping into something she left behind, something unfinished. So I flipped the photo over again and looked more carefully this time, really looked. And that's when I noticed the small detail I'd missed before, a small phone number written so lightly in the corner, it almost blended into the paper, like it hadn't been meant to be seen right away. And my heart started pounding, because suddenly the room didn't feel quiet anymore. It felt expectant, like everything around me was waiting to see what I'd do next. And I told myself I shouldn't call, that it could be anyone, a scam, a cruel joke, something dangerous. But another voice inside me, the one that still talked to my daughter when the house was too silent, kept saying the same thing over and over. What is this is why she kept secrets. And before I could talk myself out of it, I dialed the number, my thumb hovering for half a second before pressing call. And it rang just long enough for me to think no one would answer, long enough for doubt to creep in, long enough for me to almost hang up, until a man's voice finally came through the line, low, cautious, like someone used to choosing his words carefully. And when I said my daughter's name, there was a pause, not confusion, not surprise, recognition. And that pause hit harder than any response could have, because it meant I hadn't imagined this. I hadn't misunderstood. He knew her, actually knew her. And when he finally spoke, he said quietly, "I was wondering when you'd call." Like this moment had always been part of the plan, like he'd been waiting for me to catch up to a story that started years ago without me. And I felt a chill run through me, because people don't wait years for a phone call unless the truth on the other end matters. And I realized right then that whatever I was about to hear wasn't just going to change how I saw that photograph or that man or that headline, it was going to change how I saw my daughter. And I didn't know if I was ready for that, but I also knew I wasn't strong enough to stop now, not when I was this close to the answers she never gave me, not when the silence she left behind was finally starting to speak. And if your chest feels tight right now listening to this, stay with me and follow, because what he told me next is where this story stops being a mystery and starts becoming proof.